everyone, Quill here, and we are back for more Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York. We are on night 1. So we saved at our last rest. Eric has just become a vampire and has been taken under the wing of Sophie, just as Lamar was. So let's see what happens this next night. Hunger is at the heart of a vampire's existence. To ignore it is to tempt the beast to take over in its desire to feed. To overindulge in feeding may threaten the masquerade, while staining what humanity you have left. In coteries of New York, having high hunger is indicated by a progressively thicker blood. In coteries of New York, having high hunger is indicated by a progressively thicker bloody frame around the screen like the one you see now. As your hunger grows, so does this indicator. Your hunger may increase when you call upon your vampiric powers or when you need to mend your wounds after a fight. When your hunger reaches the maximum level, you will receive a warning after you complete a piece of the story. Ignore it at your own peril. Some choices might only become visible if your hunger is high enough. Similarly, high hunger may block off some choices, as you will be able to see after pressing continue. Okay, that makes sense. Totally missed that during the last playthrough with Lamar. To decrease your hunger, you will need to feed. Whenever you see a feeding opportunity, you could take the risk to hunt and slake your hunger. You will need to keep the hunger at bay if you are to uphold the masquerade and survive the nights that await you. Alright, you open your eyes. The bed isn't warm. The room is filled with artificial light from the ceiling. The Solia metal door is closed. Normally, you'd stretch for a bit. On some mornings, you'd probably throw the quilt over yourself and snooze a moment longer. But that was before. The way you woke up now, you are fully conscious. No grogginess. Nothing weighing you down. Just the nagging need in the back of your head. Hunger. Not as severe as the last time, but unmistakably there. You get up and open the door to the main room. A digital clock on the TV shows you the time, 9:04 p.m. You walk over to the blinds and retract them cautiously. The only light coming in is NYC's artificial nighttime luminescence. So that's what your waking hours are going to look like now. You miss the sunlight already. You're seriously considering just walking out of the apartment and figuring this all out by yourself, but then you come back to the memory of Kadir's exotic sword being raised in the gallery. Maybe sticking around isn't that bad of an idea after all. You keep jumping channels for around half an hour and then switch to streaming services. Almost as if the universe had a sense of irony, you catch True Blood in the flood of recommendations. The doorbell rings. It's Sophie. Good evening, Eric. Slept well? Like a baby, like a dead man. It's not exactly sleep, right? Yeah, let's say that. It's not really like normal sleep, is it? I suppose it isn't. Some say it's more like being dead, but we wouldn't know, would we? It's no use reflecting on it anyway. Except that this is who you are now. You made the right choice yesterday. I can teach you many things about yourself, your blood, its desires, and its power. We will begin tonight. You are hungry, yes? I'm sure you are. Our kind always is. There is only one remedy, the blood. The drinks we had yesterday at Elysium are not the usual way you slake your thirst. So, tonight I will assist you in your first foray into hunting. You need to learn to sense the kind of blood you desire, to understand how you can use the kind's vulnerabilities to your advantage. I'm ready to learn, no more freebies. Predator and prey, let's say that. So let me get this straight. We are predators, humans are the prey. That's pretty grim. I know what you feel. I remember the notion. But you will inevitably grow beyond it. You need blood to thrive, but there are many ways to take it, some more humane than others. You will find that drinking moderate amounts of it regularly will keep the hunger and the whispers of the beast away. You might think you're but there is a balance to be found here. The kiss gives the kind pleasure. You might remember this from your own embrace. Some can even become addicted to the sensation. But if you do it right, they tend to misremember your feeding. After all, vampires do not exist. They are myths, fairy tales, and pop culture mainstays, correct? She gives you a sly, knowing smile. That is why the masquerade is so important, and even more crucial when you feed. How do you avoid being seen? How do you cover your tracks? How do you select a victim? How do you avoid being seen while feeding? You isolate your prey, or you choose the right circumstances. People tend to avert their gaze when they see a couple intertwined in public. Love bites are easy to explain away. Some of us keep willing herds, or even just individual kind who desire the kiss. That comes at a higher risk these nights, though, so I would not recommend it to a young kindred like yourself. Feeding from the same area repeatedly can be dangerous, but by branching out, you risk the ire of other kindred on whose domains you trespass. Lucky for you, NYC is much more forgiving in this regard. New York is in somewhat of a unique position. Many of its neighborhoods remain contested or unclaimed. The reason for this is a lesson for another time, but keep the following in mind. Take opportunities to feed when they present themselves these upcoming nights. As long as you hunt cautiously and respect the masquerade at all times, you should be fine. To wit, I want you to join me for a trip tonight. Come downstairs. Gregory is waiting for us. The busy street fills the air with traffic noise, pedestrian chatter, and a mix of smells that disorient you momentarily. These warm bodies contain what you want, what you need. You catch yourself. Did you really just think of these people as mere sources of blood? It takes a nudge from Sophie to break your train of thought. Her driver opens the door for her, and then tips his hat to you, gesturing to the back of the car. The car casually joins the somewhat thin New York traffic. It's still busy in a way only one of the biggest cities in the world can be, but compared to the daytime commute, it's a pleasant drive. You barely have the time to gather your thoughts and formulate new questions before the car comes to a stop. You're among the tall skyscrapers that make up Manhattan's iconic skyline. Come, Eric, park the car, Gregory, will you? The driver just nods, and Sophie gets out. You join her, and the two of you walk through the glass doors together, then take the elevator up. You first notice an empty stage with the instruments of a string quartet still on the back, then take in the few dozen chairs in front of it. The concert seeming concluded. The patrons, all smartly dressed and posh, have spread out all over the hall. Sophie strides confidently inside, produces an invitation from her purse that she flashes in front of a security guard. You follow close and are let through without issue. Let's start easy. A social setting like this one would usually prove quite challenging to an inexperienced kindred, but consider this evening a small gift from your patron. I'm hoping to procure for you a willing vessel. Just remember what I told you about taking small sips. This one I have a soft spot for. Don't damage her. Now let's see here. Ah, there he is. She notices somebody in the crowd, flashes a heart-melting smile, and suddenly even you feel drawn to her. You haven't thought about it before, but it's laid clear before you in this moment. Sophie is beautiful. Just looking at her is a privilege. Just being with her makes you feel elated. Everybody in the crowd, but especially the man who is almost tripping over himself to reach her, clearly agrees. Edgar, I'm so happy to see you. How is your daughter? Is she with you? Oh, there she is. Julie, my girl, come over, please. There is someone I'd like you to meet. The young woman who walks across the hall can't be more than 19 years old. It's clear from her mismatched earrings and the partially faded purple hair dye that she doesn't fit this crowd. Julie, this is Eric. I think the two of you should get acquainted while I talk business with your dad. Awfully boring stuff, I assure you. I'm positive you'll like each other. The girl gives you a shy smile and nods toward the balcony stairs. You follow, somewhat unsure what it is exactly Sophie expects you to do. You reach a secluded space from which the entire lobby is visible. All eyes are on Sophie. They listen intently, then laugh when she does. Julie saves you the trouble of figuring out the next step. If you're with Sophie, then I guess you're, I mean that you know. She puts her wrist to her lips and gives herself a theatrical nip, then looks to you, embarrassed, but also hopeful? Yeah, I do. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. She takes off her jacket, unbuttons her sleeve, then rolls it up. You see a tattoo of a cat in an astronaut suit, one feline eye winking at you. There, just enjoy. A perfectly awkward smile and a blush. Probably should. We obviously need it. You take her forearm in your hands. A quick look around confirms nobody's watching, and no security cameras cover this area. You bite down gently. It's surreal. She's just given you her blood of her own volition. How is this possible? What about the masquerade? You need to ask Sophie. Your thoughts disappear amid the bliss. There's just the taste. Sweet, fresh, sanguine. You drink, and drink. No, stop. You tear away from the girl harder than you wanted. Still, the bite leaves just tiny punctures. Almost as if by instinct, you lick them clean, and the two holes become concealed, just like that. Julie is now leaning on the wall, pale, wobbly on her feet, but happy? She lets out a dreamy sigh, opens her eyes. A few tears fall onto her shirt, tears of joy. Thank you. Please, can you walk me downstairs? Please? My dad, he doesn't know. Thinks it's a condition. Miss Langley told him so. She leans on you and requests you walk her over to a bench. She takes a seat and smiles at you. The crowd around Sophie disperses slowly. Looking at her now, only some residual awe hangs in the air. Yes, she's pretty, maybe even beautiful, sure, but not your type. What came over you before? You walk over to her. Edgar, dear, it was splendid talking to you, but we need to get going. Give Julie my best wishes. Come with, Eric. Gregory is waiting for you out front. It's only in the car that Sophie addresses you. I can tell from your look that you took the opportunity. Good for you. That girl's exquisite, don't you think? You wouldn't tell by her demeanor, but she has so much passion. It brings out a unique bouquet in her blood. Look delicious. She knows who we are. I feel like I took advantage of her. That sounds like something Eric would say. It feels all wrong. I feel like I violated her, like I took advantage of her. Oh, please spare me your dramatics. I'm sure she was happy sharing herself. She's such a sheltered girl. Let her have fun from time to time. Time for the next stop. Training wheels off this time. Gregory, Flushing Meadows, please. The driver takes the car over the Williamsburg Bridge. You settle your thoughts. What did you do to the people back there? What's that about training wheels? Why flushing meadows? I think I'd like to ask her what she did. Those people back at the hall, they were all entranced. Even I was under your spell. What was that? She smiles with satisfaction. That old trick? Just the blood doing my bidding. We all have our talents. Some of them come from the legacy we inherit from our sire. Others can be learned with experience. I can sway people or make them fear me. I see more of the world and in greater detail than some kindred. I can will my body to move with unparalleled precision and grace, and more. All of these skills make me who I am. They also help me hunt. What are my powers? How do I use my powers? Do I need my powers to hunt? Okay, so what are my talents? Time will tell. You need to discover them yourself. When we arrive, experiment. Give different things a try. Follow your instinct and intuition. It will guide the blood. Always keep the masquerade in mind, however. It is all fine if you can disappear in plain sight or command animals with your mind, but save those overt talents for the right place and time. It only takes you half an hour to reach the park at this time of night. Both you and Sophie leave the car, with Gregory left behind again to find a parking spot and keep an eye on the car. Sophie seems deep in thought. She takes in the surroundings with a dreamy gaze. The sky is surprisingly clear tonight, the stars just barely visible in the light-polluted aura of the city. I feel like having a snack myself. I'll be by the fountain. Go, look for somebody to your liking. See what effects you can achieve with your blood, but only pick one victim. Just one. Then come back. Seeing how she seems not altogether here right now, you decide to leave Sophie to her own devices and seek out your prey. From here, it looks like you have a few choices. Just taking a stroll around the park and finding an isolated jogger or someone like them could work, but focusing on one area might work better. The New York State Pavilion might work as a secluded spot. There's a skate park nearby, and worst case scenario, there's bound to be some unfortunate wino around. Or maybe the tennis court's nearby? There's lights coming from there, so somebody might still be playing a late night match. They won't be alone, but they might be tired and let their guard down. As these scenarios play out in your mind, you realize you're planning how to assault a stranger in the middle of the night. It's a weird way to be, but the now familiar hunger prompts you to act. Let's see, I'm trying to remember which choice I made during Lamar. I definitely want to play this guy a little bit differently. Give the tennis court a try. Let's do it. You decide the tennis courts are as good a place as any, and make your way to the bright glow of the lamps illuminating the area. As you guessed, a pair of players, two men, fit but older, maybe pushing 60, are finishing up a match. They are the only ones there. It's time to make a move. Might want to lure him away. You think back to what Sophie did in the hall, how she managed to focus the attention of the entire gathering on her. That might be a tall order for you, but a single person could be doable. You wait patiently until the two men hit the showers, get out, and say their goodbyes. They go their separate ways, and one of them notices you standing there. You immediately grab his attention. Good evening. Oh yeah, I'm having a blast. You? Won both sets. Not bad for a grandpa. He's clearly very happy with himself. You decide there won't be a better moment to strike. Moving closer, casually at first, then closing the distance in a single leap, you sink your fangs into his flesh. His blood flows fast and feels energizing. You'd never expect an invigorating taste like this from a guy who's at least your father's age. You only take as much as you need right now, though a voice at the back of your mind urges you to keep drinking. Fit or not, you don't want this guy on your conscience if you take too much. You put him on the ground, gently, and make your way back to Sophie. As you're leaving the courts, a figure emerges from the shadows and stops you in your tracks. A hooded man is looking menacingly at you. What do you think you're doing barging in on my turf like this, Lick? Lick, what kind of slur is that? Didn't mean to trespass or piss off. What did you call me? A lick? What is that supposed to mean? Don't be cute with me. I know what you are. Shove that masquerade bullshit up your ass. Better tell me who you're with before my posse shows up and we beat it out of you. Let's see, I want to pick... I think this is what I said before, so I'm going to pick something else. They'll know who she is. Came here with Sophie Langley. She's my patron. Doesn't ring a bell. Sounds fancy, though. He licks his lips, exposing his fangs and looking at you voraciously. A nervous tick, or an attempt at intimidation? I wonder, what would Callahan do to you if I brought you in, huh? Break your shins, leave you out to be kissed by the sun? Ooh, concrete shoes maybe. He's old school like that. Attack him, call for help. Yeah, let's use celerity. Get the fuck out. You take off. Fast. Faster than you've ever run. The hoodlum has trouble keeping up but howls behind you like an animal and gives chase anyway. As you reach the Unisphere again, you slow down, noticing two people near the sculpture, a man and a woman, tangled in a passionate embrace. No, not exactly. It's Sophie, feeding, but this whole scene is set up so that it looks like a couple getting intimate in public. She pulls it off like she's done it 100 times before. It occurs to you that she probably has. The man is unsure on his feet as she lets go of him and leads him toward a nearby bench. Noticing you, she whispers something into his ear and leaves him. Her driver appears from behind a tree. Well, Eric, how did it go? You're about to answer, when the same figure as before emerges from one of the alleys. He looks at the three of you, and a predatory smile creeps onto his lips. You thought you could run away from me, Lick. Think you'll be safe with your friends? Well, I have friends, too. He makes a motion to shout, but two things happen almost at the same time. First, that feeling of warmth and beauty emanating from Sophie flares up again, entrancing both you and the hooded thug. His shout comes out as a weak, confused squeak. Second, Gregory produces a wooden stake from a holster under his jacket and slams it into the thug's chest. Just like that, in a few seconds, the posturing vampire is down on the ground, paralyzed. I see you've made a friend, Eric. Curious choice of company, I would say. Who is he? I was a vampire. He said this was his turf. He mentioned a Callahan. Let's mention that. Said something about presenting me to somebody named Callahan. Ever heard of him? She looks shocked for a split second, then recovers her regular countenance. Yes, I have. This hoodlum is anarch, then. Curious. Corona Park has not been claimed by any kindred, last I checked. Let's go to the car. We'll put him in the trunk and present him to Kadir tomorrow night. I'm sure he'll be delighted to make this unbound's acquaintance. Gregory carries the staked vampire and dumps him in the car's trunk like a mannequin. It's a strange sight, and you're quite happy you're not in that poor fucker's shoes right now. It's almost surprising that you can get away with just casually throwing a stiff into your car and driving away, but then you remember that Sophie has been doing this far longer than you have. Still, the nagging thought that anything you did tonight could have been recorded on a CCTV camera, or picked up by a rando with a half-decent smartphone and streamed online, fills you with dread. Hunting and using your abilities is a dangerous business. It's clear that this whole being a vampire thing has about as many caveats as it has perks. You're taken out of your headspace by Sophie's voice. I will pick you up tomorrow night, same as tonight. I have some business to attend to at Elysium, and I expect you to accompany me. Plus, our friend in the back needs to be properly introduced to Kadir and the prince. I'm sure he'll have some interesting things to say to the court. Her voice is cold, cruel, and nothing like the enchanting personality she showed at the gallery earlier tonight. Sophie is clearly a woman of many faces. What's going to happen to him? Good riddance, the guy's an asshole. I'd do the same thing in his place. Oh yeah, I can imagine he's going to enjoy meeting Kadir. I hope he gives him a good grilling. The guy's an asshole. Oh, Kadir will enjoy it too, I'm sure. She pauses, seemingly lost in thought for a while. You haven't told me how your hunting went. Getting the hang of it, I would hope? Will take some getting used to. I think so, yeah. I'll need some time to get used to this. It doesn't come naturally. It will, with time. You need to think about it less. Hunting is the one scenario in which you'll do well to trust your instincts. In moderation, of course. She seems distracted, not all there. Her thoughts drift, and the car remains silent until you reach your apartment. We will pick you up tomorrow evening. Good night. Just like that, without any further courtesy, Sophie leaves, driven to her apartment by Gregory, with a body in the trunk, right in the middle of Manhattan. Did you cross paths with situations like these in the past, unknowingly? What other secrets did you pass on the streets without knowing their true nature? Your haven is just as you left it hours ago. Although the sun won't come up for some time, you feel tired. You learned something about yourself today, and it'll take time to process. You're not in the mood for television, and the few books on the shelves in the apartment are either in languages you don't speak or sound like a boring read. Nothing left to do but rest. You settle in the back room, lock the door. A moment of hesitation, but then a decision. This time, you turn the light off. You think back to Julie. How many people in this city know about this vampiric society? How many are willing accomplices in sustaining it? And the thug you met in the park, if he's not Camarilla, then what is he? Are there independent vampires? How does that work? More questions. You begin wondering if there's ever going to be a night when you can start crossing them off the list instead of adding to it. You close your eyes. You sink into the now familiar void of nothingness. It greets you with open arms, like an old friend. And we rest. You open your eyes. It's pitch dark in here, the blackness of a coffin drifting in the abyss. Oh, right, the light. You grasp for the switch, flip it. The familiar cramped room with a steel door and no windows comes into view. You emerge from the bedroom fully awake, just like yesterday. This time, however, Sophie is waiting for you, comfortably seated on the sofa in your living room space, a book in her hand. The Melancholy of Resistance. The title's sure on brand. Good evening, Eric. Good evening, Sophie. How did you get inside? Sorry to have kept you waiting. Ask her how she got inside, probably. How did you get inside the apartment? After a long and spirited battle, I managed to defeat the lock. She produces a keychain with a faceted emerald at the end and jingles it in the air with a wry smile. It's my apartment, remember? Come, we have an appointment. I received word Elysium would be called again tonight on account of your unruly friend from Corona Park. This should be a great opportunity for you to mingle. She keeps talking as you walk downstairs and get in the car. Gregory gives you a slight nod and a small smile while opening the door for Sophie. He starts the car when you take your seat in the back. Most of the Primogen Council is bound to be there, at least those who usually attend. Probably some other important personalities you'd do well to at least learn about. Who should I talk to? How should I carry myself? More politics, great. Sounds like an answer Eric would give. More politics, huh? Great. Sounds delightful. You should get used to it. We kindred love scheming in our nightly dance macabre. Here, in New York City, it's relatively local and harmless, all told. Times are changing, though. She stops herself and seems to be gathering her thoughts for some moments, while shooting you a scrutinizing glance in the rearview mirror. There are power plays put in motion decades, even centuries ago, which only now are bearing fruit. Being immortal gives us plenty of time to think about our next move on the chessboard. It wouldn't hurt to start thinking about yours, as long as you discuss it with me, of course. At any rate, you should behave yourself tonight. Remember what I told you about reflecting on me as your patron. I have a reputation to uphold in the court. Do not tarnish it. There it is. She might have saved you. She might be protecting and teaching you. But it's clear what she's really concerned about. Her own interests. You step into the art hall with something of a bad memory. The last time you were here, your entire world had been turned upside down, and your existence nearly ended. But tonight there is very little outward hostility. Yes, Cater gives you a look that's definitely intended to remind you of your place. But the prince, also in attendance, seems pleased to see you. Welcome, Sophie. Eric, did I get that right? Good evening to both of you. I understand there is somebody else you wish to present to the court tonight. Yes, Prince. They will be joining us shortly. My assistant is retrieving them presently. This better be worth the prince's time, Langley. The prince gives Kadir a cold glance. Forgive the sheriff's harshness. He's in a particularly foul mood tonight. Something to do with Eric's begetter eluding his grasp, I believe. Ouch, that must have hurt his ego, even if his only reply is a crooked smile. The mention of your sire makes you come back to all the talk of eschewing societal norms and the disillusionment with the status quo you enjoyed back at the club. Look at you now. Behaved. Agreeable. She likely wouldn't be too happy with this whole setup. Prince, court, hierarchy, titles. But hey, she's gone. Probably forever. If you ever break out of this, it'll be on your own. The flaring up of whispers in the gallery hall breaks you out of your thoughts. Gregory enters the room. The jumpsuit-clad, inert vampire still staked on his shoulder. The show's about to start. Sophie's driver places his charge in the middle of the room and nods respectfully to Kadir. The sheriff approaches the vampire and removes the stake from his chest. The captive's eyes flicker to life, and he starts looking around in disbelief. Like a cornered animal, he backs out on all fours, keeps going in circles until he realizes he's trapped. Kadir steps on the man's chest and pins him to the floor. Why, who do we have here? Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. No, come on. Don't. Silence. The sheriff takes on an aura of utter dread. He appears as if he's a primal force of nature that's out to get you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do but shrivel in terror. The beast inside you shrieks, and you can swear it happens in unison with the instincts of some of the other guests here tonight. It's unlike anything you've experienced in this company during your turbulent first night as a vampire. He really did go easy on you, all things considered. It seems like it takes all of the hoodlum's willpower to not crawl into a fetal position and start crying. No, please, don't hurt me, man. Don't. You and me are gonna have a little talk downstairs at the prince's discretion. Please Please go ahead, my sheriff. You heard the prince. Get up. Let's go. He doesn't wait for a confirmation. He just grabs the man and drags him, kicking and screaming, out of the room. Conversations start all around you, some whispered, some quite overt. Sophie looks somewhat bored of the whole affair, her eyes wandering from art piece to art piece, clearly finding nothing to her particular liking. Torture in an art gallery, will Cadir manage on his own? What happens now? Let's ask about the torture. For how cultured you all seem, torturing somebody in an art gallery doesn't seem to faze you. Oh, please, do keep your naivety to yourself. Power and violence have always been two sides of the same coin. Most of us here are far too old to bother with keeping up appearances. Excuse me. Sophie leaves your side and goes to a corner of the gallery where a group of kindred, some seemingly pretty old-fashioned, gathered. The concierge offers you a drink. Still warm, it smells nice. Just a sip to start you off. A splash over your palate, coating your tongue and the insides of your cheeks. Nourishment. You're left to your own devices. You have a quick look around. The prince is currently talking to a dark-skinned woman that you recall seeing here those few nights ago. She has a cold but noble countenance to her. Their conversation seems to be casual. A loud, shrill laugh turns your attention to the bespectacled man who you saw with Sophie on the night of your judgment. He's making the rounds, chatting up different patrons. You feel somebody's eyes on you. A casually dressed, plain-looking man stands alone near a column, watching you. He turns his gaze away sheepishly when he realizes you've noticed. Let's talk with the guy. There's something about this guy. It's not that he's staring at you, and most everyone in this room has at one point or another. It's how he does it. He seems shy, maybe even afraid. It's hard to find a secluded spot in the gallery tonight, but this guy has an entire corner of the room all to himself. As you approach, he's standing alone with no glass in hand, a worried look on his face. Good evening, Mr. Larson. Or you can call me Robert. Either's fine. So who are you? You mean like generally? Vampires, same as you, though I might not quite look it. I'm one of Prince Panhard's Primogen. I'm here on business, in case the prince requires my insight. Usually it's so she can hear me out before ignoring me. Not sure if you were paying attention the other night, but when the prince mentioned diverging opinions on whether you should be executed or not, that was me. I was the diverging opinion. What's your reasoning? Your reward. We should thank the guy. He stuck up for us. That's huge. Thank you. Even if it didn't change the prince's mind. Yeah, that's usually how it goes. Listen, I don't want to be rude, and I appreciate you reaching out, but word of advice, stay away from me. Many vampires in the sect regard my position as Primogen to be some kind of a joke, you know? You talk to me, they'll notice, and they'll hold it against you. You have a quick look behind you and see that a few of the kindred keep shooting you curious glances. One woman in particular, a redhead boasting a fanciful hairstyle, watches you disapprovingly. Some of them already do, I imagine. Excuse me, I need to try to get a word in with a few Primogen members before Cadir returns. Enjoy your night. With just the critical looks of a few kindred to keep you company, you start thinking about who to pursue next. You notice Sophie mingling with other kindred, clearly in her element and not to be disturbed. Cadir hasn't come back yet, so you can probably still find time for at least one conversation. Let's talk to the prince. You approach the prince, trying to stay as respectful of her private conversation as possible. She glances at you as you step forward, her scrutinizing gaze mimicked by her companion. She addresses the dark-skinned woman before turning to you. Excuse me for just a moment, Samira. Yes, Eric, what is it? I wanted to ask about the Camarilla. Let's ask her about it. Sophie has told me a lot about the society, but I still feel like I'm not seeing the whole picture. How does the Camarilla operate exactly? It is a very broad question, but I suppose I can answer it in simple terms. The Camarilla has a long history of keeping order among kindred and furthering our influence over the kind. Our principles, which we call traditions, are paramount to those goals. The sect at large has many layers and positions that I'm sure somebody will be happy to explain to you in detail. As for me, as prince, I am the overseer of this city's affairs. The Ivory Tower sometimes calls our designation archons to intervene in a domain's politics, but New York City rarely requires such an arbitration during my reign. Oh wow, but New York City rarely required such arbitration during my reign. I don't know that word, so I'm gonna look it up. It's Archon. Elite hired killers and warriors and scholars and investigators, handpicked by the Justicars, Camarilla judges with rare global reach. That's interesting. The dark-skinned woman looks impatiently at you and catches the prince's attention. Forgive me, that's all the time I can spare right now. We have some things to discuss with Samira still. Enjoy your night, Eric. You leave the two women to their conversation, which they get back to almost immediately after the prince turns to Samira. A loud exchange near the staircase grabs everybody's attention. Kadir is back, and the hoodlum is with him. The sheriff pushes the other vampires inside the room. The vampire that threatened you last night is a mess. That stupid hat is still inexplicably on his head, covering some of his ruined face in welcome shadow. He's barely conscious. His skin is broken, you think. Something protruding there, making the pant leg bulge. One arm seems twisted at a strange angle. Very little blood, surprisingly, but clearly a whole lot of hurt. Well, Kadir, did our guest cooperate? Tell the prince your name. It's Howard. And who do you run with, Howard? The Midnighters. An anarch coterie, my prince. Active for some time now, though from what this one told me, the name is about the only legacy the group has kept over the years. I see. Hey, Prince, I didn't mean it. I didn't know. I didn't... A loud crack makes some of the guests audibly gasp as Kadir slap dislocates the man's jaw. The spray of blood creates something like an abstract art piece on the floor. This one is guilty of threatening a member of the Camarilla and claiming a domain without the prince's approval. That alone would be enough to pass with judgment, but he is also anarch scum. My prince, there can be only one verdict. Final death. Do your duty, Sheriff. Unless, of course, somebody would like to play at being a good Samaritan like our dear Miss Langley a few nights ago. The look the prince serves you and Sophie is a cruel jest. Sophie takes it gracefully, smiling and slipping her arm under yours in a strange public show of affection. Nobody says anything. The vampire named Howard jumps to his feet and makes for the window. Okay, shit. Well, you're not supposed to... Just a bit of BTM info here. In Elysium, using your vampire abilities is strictly forbidden. So this would be a big no-no. We could stop him, but we wouldn't be able to do this. I think we'll avoid intervening here. You have a feeling Howard's efforts are fruitless. Just a few seconds later, that feeling is confirmed. He almost reaches the window. Almost, but not quite. In what seems like a blink of an eye, Cadier appears first near his scabbarded sword in one corner of the gallery, and then next to the escaping anarch on the opposing side of the room. The next moment, Howard's head flies off of his body, baseball cap free. His lifeless body crumples to the ground and begins to decompose in real time. It's an uncanny sight. As always, our sheriff does not fail to impress. I would like to thank Miss Langley for bringing this anarch thug to my and Cadier's attention. I assume all have found the verdict satisfactory? It's a rhetorical question, and everyone here knows it. Then I consider tonight's meeting concluded. Good night to all of you. She steps out of the room, and you can see that many of the guests move to do the same. Sophie seems to be conversing with somebody, a serious-looking man in a trench coat, about what transpired. You probably have the time to strike up a conversation of your own, too. Cadier al-Asmai is still here, for one, but clearly getting ready to leave. Larson is still moping around, and the other man you noticed before Cadier brought Larson is still moping around, and the other man you noticed before Cadier brought the anarch in is still chatting with the remaining attendants. Let's talk to Larson. He seems like an interesting dude. Now that the gallery is emptying, you hope Larson will be less eager to excuse himself from talking to you. He takes a few steps toward the stairs, clearly ready to leave when you approach him. Hey, can't stay away, can you? What are your thoughts on the trial? Why didn't the prince consult you? So what are your plans for tonight? So what are your plans for the rest of the night? My plans for tonight? He lets out a mirthless chuckle. Having an existential crisis, maybe? Hey, before you offer to share in the misery, I'm taken. This time he flashes you a genuine smirk. What about you, though? Must have been hard to see what could have easily happened to you just a few nights ago. You know what? Don't answer that. I don't want to pry. It's clear that he regrets bringing it up, and is even more uncomfortable now that he did. Listen, it was nice talking to you, but I gotta go. Enjoy your night and all that. With just a single look at the rest of the thinning crowd, he leaves the gallery. It's right about when Sophie also ends her conversation and walks over to you. Interesting evening, wasn't it? Come, Gregory's waiting downstairs. She seems preoccupied with something and not in a talkative mood. It's an awkward ride back to the city. This time, you arrive at another building, just 2 streets across from your apartment. She brings you upstairs, through a very nice lobby and a luxurious-looking hall, into her domain. Please, have a seat. I shall be right with you. You take in your surroundings. The apartment is like a gallery, an old-school smoking room that you've seen in some period piece once, and a Novo Rich's living room, meticulously combined together. Apologies. Old habits die hard. Clearly, some stick with you even after your death. She drags on her cigarette and breathes out. Breathes. How is she doing that? Can you do that? Oh yes, you might not know. It takes some practice, but you can keep smoking if you'd like. Other things too. Experiment. You might surprise yourself. But I did not bring you here to show off. This is where I rest these nights. The door in the back, the bedroom, similar to yours. I have servants and bodyguards in addition, of course. I brought you here because I need you to trust me. When I told you before that I needed your best behavior to uphold my good standing with the court, I meant it. But that's not the whole story. I have your interests in mind, too. That's why I've given you your own haven, why I'm trying to teach you how to navigate this new reality. But you need to trust me, or else this won't work. You can come here whenever you feel like asking me something. When you're in trouble, too. Though I hope that won't happen often. I would ask you to come here when you wake up tomorrow. I'll have something to discuss with you. I'll be here. Trust needs to be earned. Why not discuss it right now? Sounds like a proper response. Why not talk right now since we're here together? I still need to follow up on a few things before we speak. Patience, fledgling. That silence again. There's definitely something on Sophie's mind tonight, but she doesn't seem eager to share it with you just yet. I'm leaving for another visit. Come downstairs with me. We'll give you a lift. A quick trip. A promise that you'll show up tomorrow, and some polite goodbyes later. You open the door to your haven and gather your thoughts. It's exciting in a way, being dragged deeper and deeper into the secret society and its rules. Whatever Sophie has planned for you, it's bound to teach you more about this thing you have become. You sink into your vampiric sleep with just a sliver of hope. It's a welcome change. Alright, now we're resting. Once more, darkness falls upon the city. You wake up, same... Whoa. Forgot how fast this one scrolls up. Once more, darkness falls upon the city. You wake up, same as you have these past few nights, in a windowless room. As you pry open the reinforced steel door, you look out at the window to see, invariably, a sky bereft of sunlight, and then it hits you, the hunger. For a moment, you let yourself wonder if there will ever come a night when it's just not there. Given what you have learned thus far, you probably have as much chance of kick-starting your heart with jumper cables. You lock the door behind you and head over to Sophie's apartment. You did promise to call on her. Might as well not keep the lady waiting. And hey, what else are you gonna do? Call Jess? Yeah, right. What would you tell her? Even if she picked up at all, she'd probably use the opportunity to stick some more needles in you. Or worse, persuade you to come back. Or go back to work? Yeah, who are we kidding? HR probably found a replacement the day after you went missing. Nobody there cares if you got kidnapped or turned into a creature of the night. These thoughts put you in a weird mood. It's a strange sensation to walk the crowded streets, the same as you have so many times before, but feeling so disconnected. All these people. You're not one of them. Not anymore. You're a vampire, kindred, and you need to carve your own path in this strange new existence, one way or another. Appropriately enough, you arrive at Sophie's building, just as that thought crosses your mind. A quick word with the security guard, and you're let into the elevator. Apparently, Miss Langley is expecting you. Of course she is. You knock and wait, patiently as the footsteps on another side grow closer. Finally, the door opens, and Gregory, Sophie's driver, invites you in. You find the lady herself standing by the window, silhouetted against the city's midnight glow. She stares out, motionless, like a marble statue. Everything all right? Am I interrupting something? She looks out of sorts. Let's ask. Is everything all right? She doesn't react immediately, but seems to snap out of some meditative state and looks at you with strangely bleary eyes. Yes, it is. How kind of you to ask. Tell me, when you look out at this city, when you see the lights, hear the hum, smell the rain on the pavement, what do you think about? You gaze out. The lights, rain, the relentless honking below, music blasting from a nearby window, echoing off of buildings. Someone should record an hour of this and throw it up on YouTube as an ambient piece. Other than that, though, it's business as usual. The sights, the sounds, the smells, you know them all too well. Sophie watches you. You can tell she's disappointed somehow, but she covers it up with a courteous smile. Well, not everyone can appreciate the intricacies that the world offers. In fact, among kindred, my clan is somewhat notorious for finding innate meaning even in the mundane. You see, the blood that flows within me is that of the clan Toreador. There are 13 such bloodlines among us kindred, though that number has been contested in the past, and these nights, it seems that nothing is certain anymore. The clans have gone by many epithets over the years, but the names used these nights have their roots in medieval times, the original Inquisition, if you can believe it. They used these to categorize us, describe our inherent differences. In time, we adopt them ourselves. Each clan has a uniqueness about it, inescapable, originating from an ancient progenitor, carried from sire to childe. For the Toreador, the gift lies in a sensitivity of sorts. We are uniquely attuned to beauty and ugliness both. We can see either where most cannot, a blessing on most nights, occasionally a curse. The sheriff is of my clan as well, although you'd be hard-pressed to see him as such. Poor Kay, dear. It breaks my heart to see him in this state. Still, there is a beauty to it as well. Nothing like a good fall from grace. Try as she might to act playful, you can tell she genuinely cares. She lets her gaze wander for a brief moment, but is quick to regain her composure. Then there are the Ventru, known for their pride and a proclivity to rule over others. The prince represents that clan, and as is quite common in our society around the globe. Where the Blue Bloods think themselves rulers, the Brujah like to see themselves as preeminent revolutionaries. They call for universal rebellion while being slaves to their own temper. We don't discuss the rabble much anymore, not after they've largely broken off with the Camarilla. To think they were philosophers once, long ago. I hope to tell you more about some of the other bloodlines tonight. It's my clan. How can I tell a kindred's clan? Clans stick together, right? Say I meet a vampire for the first time. How can I tell what their clan is? Usually you cannot, with a few exceptions perhaps. For some clans, the uniqueness I mentioned bleeds into their appearance or disposition, but even that can be misleading. Outside of a few very specific cases, knowing one's clan is less important than understanding who they are personally, what drives them, their wants and needs, weaknesses too. Speaking of which, we come to the reason I wanted to speak to you tonight. It is customary in our society, especially among younger kindred, to organize into coteries. Sometimes these are called by the prince themselves, or mandated by a fledgling sire. In our case, you'll be treated as more of a strong recommendation. I want you to seek out companions, not only because you need to learn more about our society, but also because it is useful. True friendships are rare among kindred, but having allies, even temporary ones, is something of a necessity these nights. We might be selfish creatures, but we are drawn to each other nonetheless. Where should I look for allies? Do you have your own coterie? What if I want to go it alone? Suppose I'm not the social type and would rather go at it alone. What then? Well, if you find the company of others disagreeable, I certainly don't intend to force it on you. I'm sure you'll find other ways to burn the nights away. But if you ever find yourself in need of assistance, knowledge, or just someone to talk to, it might be painful to realize there's nobody out there for you. Should you get yourself in a tight spot, I will not always be available or willing to lend a hand. So I would suggest you take this recommendation seriously. She puts on a mysterious smile. I spent some of my precious time last night asking around, pondering potential kindred for you to meet. Came up with a short list of contacts. I hope you'll appreciate the gesture. Forging a partnership with them might offer perspectives and viewpoints that I cannot provide, lenses through which to view our kind. They are all members of the Camarilla, of course, more or less. You're choosing friends for me. Sounds like a great response. Wait, you're choosing friends for me now? Is this like a playdate thing? Don't try to get clever with me, darling. Think of it as a gift, one you can put to good use or squander entirely. Either way, you're welcome. So let us start with the Tremere. They are a powerful clan, disliked by many but feared and respected by many more. They have been an important pillar of the Camarilla since the very beginning. They are blood sorcerers. You look at Sophie with a hint of disbelief. Blood sorcerers? Pretty sure Mark from QA used to brag about having a level 70 blood sorcerer. Somehow you don't think he meant magical vampires. Sophie snickers. Oh, Tilde, don't be so caught with that look on your face when you meet a warlock in person. They really are adept at using vitae, their own as well as others, to unique and potent effects. Since they are quite rigid in their hierarchy, the kindred I had in mind for you might need some persuading. His name is Agathon. From what I hear, he is quite the scholar, very ambitious. The Childe of a noted Tremere here in New York, Ace-Link Surbridge. Spend enough time with Agathon, and I'm sure you'll run into her sooner or later. Blood magic, intriguing. This whole blood magic thing sounds intriguing. Oh yes, fascinating. It is also a well-kept secret of the Tremere. Don't expect them to share it right away. Some things have to be earned. Anyway, if you wish to contact the young Tremere, I hear you can usually find him in a New Age bookstore out on Broadway. The Tremere have one of their workshops there. Gregory will give you the details. Now, this next recommendation comes with a bit of a caveat. As you recall me saying, most bloodlines have unique features that might not be obvious at first glance. Well, there is one clan whose members wear their curse on their sleeve. The Nosferatu. Man, what's with the goofy names? Guess they're really big on Blue Oyster Cult. No wonder they make their havens in sewers, abandoned buildings, and such. Their appearance is hideous and obviously unnatural. Had they walked the streets like other kindred, the kind would have learned of our existence long ago. Did she just shudder? It's hard to tell with her usual complexion, but you could swear her skin suddenly took on an even more sickly color. The one I have in mind isn't as big an eyesore as the worst of them, but he's no Adonis either. Still, he has some talents and connections that you might find useful. His name is D'Angelo, and he has an office, for lack of a better term, in the otherwise abandoned grain terminal in Red Hook, right next to one of those Swedish stores. The name escapes me, the one with the awful furniture. Might want to ask about connections. You mentioned this D'Angelo has some useful connections. I was just getting to that. D'Angelo does odd jobs for Kadir, digging up dirt, locating kindred who would prefer to remain hidden, the kind of work the Nosferatu are best at. He's on a case right now. Something to do with kind murders, I think. After your initial brush with our dear sheriff, I think it would be wise to show some goodwill towards his agenda. Assisting D'Angelo with his investigation might be just the thing. She takes a brief pause to look out the window again. Now come the two more exotic proposals. Exotic, as if the blood mage and vampire detective were business as usual. You may have heard about the Gangrel before. They are a wild clan, in touch with their beast in a way others might not dare to attempt. They mostly keep out of big cities, but there are exceptions. Nominally, they haven't been a part of the Camarilla for over 2 decades, but the one kindred I would like you to meet has strong, shall we say, familial ties to the sect. Her name is Tamika. Her sire, Jezebel, was instrumental during the Battle of New York back in 1999, the very same battle that cemented the city as a Camarilla domain. Sadly, her achievements have gone largely unrecognized. Tamika and a number of her siblings still reside in the domain they were awarded after the battle, Prospect Park. Jezebel herself left the city some years ago, fed up with being underappreciated. Should I contact non-Camarilla clans? I got the impression contacting vampires who aren't in the Camarilla was frowned upon, but you're saying these gangrel aren't a part of the sect anymore. How does that work? It's not as clear-cut. The gangrel as a whole have sworn off the Camarilla, but individual kindred of that clan can still hold our ideals. Jezebel was one of them before she became jaded. Besides, their domain in Prospect Park has been upheld by Prince Panhard for all these years, has it not? We consider these members of the sect, and they have, for the most part, kept to themselves. Perhaps it will take a young kindred such as yourself to make them realize where their loyalties lie. So you see, seeking out Tamika could prove quite educational if nothing else. And who knows, perhaps you will find her temperament to be a welcome change of pace. But speaking of a change of pace, I have one last suggestion for you, though it's one I don't make lightly. The kindred who calls herself Hope. She's a Malkavian. They are a uniquely cursed clan. For centuries, we considered them mad, insane, unhinged. But those of us who spend enough time with them come to understand the truth. It is no sickness, but a unique perception of the world that has them appear to us as unstable, and that perception can prove to be very valuable. Having a Malkavian as your companion might be taxing on the nerves and a true test of patience at times, but their insight and intuition are unrivaled among kindred. As for Hope specifically, she is said to be a recluse, but I have it on good authority that she can currently be found in an internet cafe, I believe it's called, in Lower Manhattan. Gregory has the address. Where did you learn about her exactly? One of my colleagues told me about her. He considers her uniquely talented and tapped into current fads among kind. Not something I am personally interested in, as I'm sure you know by now. I take his word for it, at any rate. Well, I believe that's all of them. I still have a few social calls to make tonight, so I'll leave you to it. Use tonight and tomorrow night to arrange some cordial visits of your own. I will send Gregory for you as soon as I have further need of your services. Oh, that reminds me. You will need a car. Join us downstairs, won't you? She smiles once more and turns to her driver. He helps her put on her coat, and the three of you leave Sophie's apartment. Sophie points to one of the cars near the building as Gregory hands you the keys. It's a rather inconspicuous compact car, a decent-looking, if not luxurious ride. Stay safe, Eric. This is your first night alone. Don't let it be your last. As they drive away, you find yourself with more freedom than you've had for the past few nights. A blessing or a burden? Time will tell. With a list of addresses in hand, you consider your next move. Alright, so now we can choose someone. Who do we talk to first? Let's see, we can go speak to Agathon, Hope. We actually haven't met him at all in this game yet, so let's talk to him. Let's go talk to D'Angelo. As you make your way down Clinton Street, the incessant hum of traffic gives way to the ominous silence of the waterfront. You stop to take in the familiar bouquet of the Hudson, made all the more potent by your recently sharpened senses. Across the basin, the Red Hook grain terminal rears its rusty frame. Once a bustling industrial area, now a sleeping giant, splayed out on the riverbank, forgotten, abandoned. Conveniently so, especially for one of the hidden. Keeping to the shadows, you sneak closer to the dilapidated complex, making your way past hole-ridden silos and wobbly chain-link fences. By the time you reach the entrance to the main building, you can almost feel the rust particles making themselves cozy at the back of your throat. Not getting your hopes up, you give the door a slight nudge. To your surprise, it gives almost instantly. Looks like someone's been using it recently. Once inside, you find yourself in a large empty hall. Looking around you, you can almost picture it back in its heyday, stacked to the rafters with heavy machinery. You notice a set of stairs leading to a mezzanine, most likely an office space, and then you see it, a faint light coming from one of the upper rooms. Looks like you're in luck. Quietly, with bated breath, you climb the stairs and approach the dimly lit room. The door creaks open, revealing what looks like an old-timey detective's office, complete with crooked window blinds, an overflowing ashtray, and paper scattered across a wooden desk. Suddenly, it hits you, that nagging feeling. This is all too convenient, too inviting. Before you can react, the trap is already sprung. A plume of cigar smoke wafts over your shoulder. The barrel of a gun rubs against your spine. A raspy voice whispers in your ear. Let me guess. Took a wrong turn in the third silo? Attempt to talk down the assailant, rush the assailant, or make him stand down. Probably talk him down. You decide to play along. Raising your arm slowly, you weigh your next words carefully. You're pretty sure a bullet to the back wouldn't kill you, but it doesn't sound too pleasant either. So this isn't Bloodsuckers Anonymous. That's not anything rash. How about you lower the gun so we can talk like civilized kindred? Oh, I'm plenty civilized, see? You can feel the barrel digging deeper into your back. Double action, carbon steel framed. The finest handgun your hard-earned money can buy. Doesn't get much more civilized than that. What about shooting someone in the back? Or hit him? If you're gonna shoot me, you may as well give me the courtesy of looking me in the eye. For a few tense seconds, the room grows quiet. So quiet, in fact, you could swear you actually hear the smoke swirling in the air. Finally, the stranger speaks again. You know what? Fair enough. In a strange interplay of light and shadow, the stranger reappears behind his desk. Seeing him in his full, for lack of a better word, glory, you can't help but smirk. This is the dreaded Nosferatu? The way Sophie described them, you were expecting some grotesque monstrosity. But this guy? The clothes, the swagger, the hard-boiled detective routine, it all comes across as a bad joke. Still, when it comes to appearance, his lineage is undeniable. From 30 feet away, you could probably pass for a bum with a nasty skin condition. From 5 feet away, he looks like something made to be seen from 30 feet away. He leans back in his chair, casually pointing his gun at you. So, what brings you to my humble office? For a Nosferatu, are you D'Angelo? Ask him if that's his name. You're the one they call D'Angelo? That's my name, kid. Don't wear it out. My friends call me Jin, so you best stick to D'Angelo for the time being. Now, I suggest you tell me what this is about. Otherwise, I kindly ask that you get the fuck out of my office. Charming. I can see why Kadir keeps you around. His expression sours. Not a name you want to casually toss around, kid. But hey, I get it. You're not some random schmuck who wandered in here off the streets. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Who I work for is less important. What I'm working on, however... The Red Hook murders. I know. I want to help you catch the killer. His moldy lips twist into a smile. Do you now? D'Angelo lowers his shades. For a few seconds, he sits motionless with his eyes fixed on yours. Suddenly, he raises his gun, almost making you flinch. Almost. Then he twirls it into his shoulder. Then he twirls it into his shoulder holster in a flashy display that definitely looks like it was practiced. A lot. In front of a mirror. You see the Nosferatu's lips move, but the quiet mumbling clearly isn't meant for your ears. Listening in, you're able to catch snippets of his monologue. Sure, they seem to care. What was the end game? What was their angle? Everyone's got one, even if they pretend like they don't. Especially then. What the hell? Maybe this town finally got to me. He pauses, sticks a fresh cigar between his crooked teeth. Maybe a good leap of faith is just what the doctor ordered. Narrating, offer him a light. As he reaches into his pocket, you flash a lit lighter before his eyes. Or maybe he could use a healthy dose of unhealthy. For a split second, he gives you a puzzled look. Then he leans over to your lighter, puffing on the cig as it catches fire. A wry smile comes back to his lips. I like you, kid. You might look like a used car salesman, but there's just something about you. Tell you what. I was just about to head back to the crime scene, take a look around, refresh my notes. You can tag along if you want to. I could use an assistant, someone to take notes and make wild assumptions for me to shoot down. Who knows, if you're any good, I might consider making this a long-term arrangement. Sounds good, you won't regret it. What are we waiting for? Just one more thing. You still got me at a disadvantage here. Seems like you've done some digging on me, but with you, I've barely scratched the surface. You catch my drift? So answer me this. Who was it that sent you into my neck of the woods? Or, in layman's terms, who do you work for? No one. I'm a free agent. For a brief moment, D'Angelo just sits there, motionless, looking straight into your eyes. Suddenly, a wry smile creeps up on his lips. You can tell he's called your bluff. Uh-huh. Sure, kid. Play it close to the vest if you feel like it. That answer told me more than you'd like anyway. One blink is enough for you to miss D'Angelo vanishing from his chair. Just when you're about to look around, he reappears right next to you. Up close, his smile is even more unnerving. Alright, moonlight's burning. Let's get cracking. With a certain fascination, you watch D'Angelo stumble his way across West Brooklyn. Oddly animated, incessantly scratching his face and neck, stopping every once in a while for a bout of mumbling narration. He is most certainly a sight to behold. Still, he seems to be getting around okay, and you take particular note of the fact that he seems to be choosing the darker, less frequented streets. There is definitely a method to his madness. Eventually, your leprous guide takes a sudden turn off Van Brunt Street and into a particularly dingy alleyway. The torn pieces of yellow police tape are a dead giveaway. This has to be the place. Well, here we are. Time to earn your stripes. This is where they found him. Drained dry, not a drop of blood in him. And before you ask, no, I didn't get to see the body, so I don't know if there were any bite marks. So, what can you tell me? You take a moment to examine the crime scene. Judging by the chalk outline on the pavement, the man was killed recently. Curiously, there doesn't appear to be a trace of blood or viscera, and you know the city's cleanup crew isn't that fast, or that thorough. Looking up, you notice a spray-painted sign on the walls. It reads, "The Blood Speaks," in big, crooked letters. You look to D'Angelo. The Nosferatu gives you an expecting look. Did you say the victim was drained dry? Because I don't see a trace of blood anywhere. Good eye, kid. It's the details that count. And given that the murder was committed right here and the victim didn't make a sound, we can therefore conclude that... the killer was Kindred. Bingo. Only a Kindred could drain a human this quickly, this quietly. But not just any Kindred. Take a look at that graffiti. What do you think it means? That spreader meant to throw us off. Nothing. It's meant to throw us off. Nah, I can see why you'd think that. But look at how crooked the letters are. Barely legible. You can't fake something like that. Someone was very nervous, very scared. It definitely meant something to them. Tell me, if you were to guess, which clan would you say our killer belongs to? Oh, we have to guess. Thinbloods, Malkavians, or Tremere. From what I know of the Tremere, just to give you guys a little more BTM info, the Tremere value, if I'm remembering right, the Tremere actually value beauty, if I'm not mistaken. No, wait, I got that wrong. Actually, no. Even knowing what I do about these clans, I'm not sure, so scratch that. We'll just take a guess. Tremere, maybe. Nah, let's go with Malkavians. Maybe it's a Malkavian serial killer. They're pretty nuts, right? Nah, kid. The Moonies can be a bit playful, but there's a method to their madness. Leaves a certain aftertaste. This right here just reeks of desperation. It might be jumping to conclusions, but my money's on the Thinbloods. He pauses, spits out the mangled remains of a cigar. Shit. Looks like we're gonna have to pay Larson a visit. Thinblood Primogen. Why him? How do we know he's a Thinblood, though? That's what I don't understand. Let's ask why him. Why him? Gee, kid, I don't know, because he's just a swell guy to talk to? Or maybe because he's the Thinblood Primogen? Not sure if he knows who the killer is, but he could probably make an educated guess. In any case, we'd be doing him a favor. If it turns out one of his is violating the Masquerade, it would put him in a hell of an awkward position. And I mean shitting upside down awkward. It's the kind of weakness the other Primogen would love to exploit. His position in the council as bad as it is. He pauses for a moment and mumbles to himself, but it's too quiet for you to make out. Finally, he lights up a fresh cigar. He takes a puff and lets the smoke escape through his crooked smile. Alright, kid, let's get this over with. Compared to the industrial ugliness of Red Hook, Sterling Place is quite a change of scenery. The heavily gentrified and pleasantly dull residential area emanates the sort of peaceful apathy that rich hipsters scoff at and blue-collar workers dream of. All of a sudden, the Nosferatu stops. It almost seems like he was taking a deep breath, steeling himself for things to come. This is the place. With that, he points to a surprisingly nice-looking two-story house. The place is almost completely dark. Almost. You notice a dim light shining through the curtains of an upper-story window. It's probably safe to assume that the head of the family is working late, especially if the head of the family happens to be a vampire. Okay, kid, we gotta be gentle about this. I'm talking velvet gloves, soft cushions, you rang, my lord gentle. We need to get Larson out here without making a fuss or letting his family see us. If we blow this, he'll shut down like a speakeasy on raid night. Trust me, I know. Sounds like you two have some history. Let's get to it. What's the plan? Let's ask him about if they have history. Sounds like you two have some history. Sounds about right, but that's a story for another time. Right now, let's stick to why we're here. Tell you what, how about you take the lead on this one? I'm curious to see how you handle it. You take a step back and look around the area. The lit-up window seems like a safe bet. Now it's just a matter of getting Larson's attention. His, and no one else's. This could backfire. As you're trying to come up with a viable strategy, you are suddenly startled by a loud noise. It takes you a second to identify the sound as a dog's barking. It doesn't take you long to figure out where it came from, as a bearded man leading a Rottweiler on a leash comes into view. Probably better not to throw a small rock at the window. Let's do that. You kneel down and pick a rock off the lawn. One small enough to not break glass, but big enough to get someone's attention. Deftly, you chuck the rock at the window. It bounces off the glass with a quiet, but audible thunk. Moments pass in silence, making you think no one got your message. Just as you start to look for another rock, you hear the window slide open. A very unassuming and slightly unshaven man in a turtleneck appears at the window. As soon as he notices you, his expression sours, like he just smelled something rotten. He addresses your Nosferatu partner in what can only be described as a very loud and very angry whisper. Get the fuck off my lawn, D'Angelo! You know goddamn better than to show your ugly mug around here. You glance over to D'Angelo. He looks somewhat embarrassed, scratching the back of his neck, clearly trying to find the right angle to play this. Don't interfere. Or do we... We wouldn't have bothered you if this wasn't important. Eric? Stay where you are. You wait out on the lawn, listening to Larson quietly making his way downstairs. Before long, he appears on the porch, locking the front door behind him. He motions at you to follow him off to the side of the house. There, he turns toward you. What do you want? It's about the Red Hook murders. We think one of yours is responsible. Bullshit. The Duskborn's got enough trouble just staying alive out here. What could possibly make them openly violate the Masquerade? Desperation. The killer's been leaving messages. Whoever they are, I think they know something. Something they can't share with just anyone. I know it seems far-fetched, but it's the only way this puzzle fits together. Nah, I don't buy it. You're reaching. Trying to find a scapegoat. Getting your boss's good graces. Word gets around, D'Angelo. You think I don't know who you're working for? Then help us clear your name. Then help us clear your people's name. What have you got to lose? Everything. I've been a thorn in the council's side for a while now. This is just the excuse they need to get rid of me. What if it turns out one of yours did it and you sat on your hands to protect him? You think the council will jump on that? He looks off into the darkness, pondering his opinions. He lets out a heavy sigh. Look, I'll ask around, consult my sources. If it turns out one of my own is responsible, they will face justice. In the meantime, keep your deductions to yourself. I have enough trouble as it is. Deal. Good. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to my family. And with that, Larson retreats to the elusive safety of his home. You decide it's best to move along. You walk a couple blocks in utter silence. Even D'Angelo's mumbling seems to have taken a back seat. Oddly enough, He found his newfound reticence somewhat unnerving. Finally, the Nosferatu stops and turns towards you. Hell of a night. I don't know about you, kid, but I sure could use a drink. Something warm, in a tall, sweaty glass. But first, let me tally your score. Let's see now. You did make a good first impression. I like someone who could talk themselves out of a tight spot. Talking's cheap. Bullets, not so much. You held your own at the crime scene. Nothing I hadn't figured out on my own, but hey, we can't all be professionals. Finally, when the situation called for subtlety, you managed to avoid unwanted attention. Discretion is what separates a private dick from just any old dick. All in all, you did fine. Not fine, but not bad for your first case. Don't let it get to your head. I'll be in touch. I'll let you know if I hear from Larson. Be ready to meet me at the office. He starts to walk away, but suddenly stops and turns back toward you. And bring a notepad. Every good assistant should have one. Alright, well that's going to be the end of our stream for today, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Catch you later.